So we've got John Deluce here, who's the president and CEO of the company. And he's a former manager at Ernst and Young, and with Melchior, which is the other company where he's the CEO. In 2020, they went through an exciting discovery at the Excellon deposit, which is in the western part of Timmins, and that became a joint venture with Kirkland Lake Gold. So now they're he's working hard to do the same thing at Beschefer with that property, and then of course the Deluce name might it's probably familiar to a lot of the folks on the call. Basically, several generations of entrepreneurs in Northern Ontario in the airlines business and financing mining companies. So John is continuing that heritage, spearheading Melchior and Goldseek. And then we have Martin here with us. He's the senior geologist at the company, and he's got two decades of experience, over 2 decades working in the Abitibi, and particularly in the area. He was for a long time at the Casa Berardi Mine, which is of course very close to Beschefer, and taking that project from exploration into operations. So yeah, thanks for accepting to giving the presentation, and the virtual floor is yours.
Sounds great. Well, we appreciate everybody's time and the opportunity to present to the group. Yeah, thanks again for everyone. So we're a relatively new company. So we went public in March of 2020, and we announced the option with Wallbridge at Beschefer the next year in March of 2021. So and a bit more about myself. Attila covered the majority of it. In terms of my family office history in mining, so we've operated the majority of the last 20 years in the private mining space. When I say private mining space, the majority of that was financing junior mining companies, developing assets privately, building targets and selling them to juniors, and holding board positions. And we've had numerous takeovers as a result of either our properties or the financial efforts and board support that we've provided companies across Ontario and Quebec. So really, the reason why we made this change about 5 years ago from being focused in the private markets to the public markets is we had a string of bad investments in 2016 and 17 where we optioned or sold our own properties to companies, helped them out financially, and these companies didn't execute on their business plan and didn't give investors and deliver to the promises that were made. So we decided, instead of going through that again, to build a vehicle from scratch with a couple of our grassroots assets to really be our vehicle for this, what we believe is a very strong gold cycle. And we put our capital to work alongside our partners and shareholders and to ensure effective capital management. So we're very proud of maintaining that mandate. So jumping into our overall strategy. So when we went public, we had 2 grassroots assets. We maybe just go back one, Martin. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So we went public with 2 grassroots assets. I promised my family office and my shareholders that we would acquire a near resource asset, as especially in markets like today, it's very difficult to build a company while limiting dilution, only focused on grassroots assets. However, I do believe that in this gold and commodity cycle, I think the demand for grassroots will come, and that's why we're very excited about on that side of our portfolio, given that exploration has been neglected for so long, and the amount of the dollars spent by the majors are down quite significantly, and they're not replenishing their reserves to maintain their production profile. So we operate in Ontario and Quebec only. We aren't a team that chases the newest fad. We believe in operating in jurisdictions where we've had success in the past, and we have the infrastructure to ensure that we're able to run our exploration programs very cost efficiently. And yeah, as I mentioned before, that's a focus of ours, and we'll get into an example of that when I give an overview of Beschefer. We'll go over a quick overview on our portfolio as a whole and our strategy, and then we'll get into the bulk of our presentation on Beschefer. So we have one Ontario project west of here. It's in the Hemlo district, shares 4 kilometers of Barrick Gold's mining lease at their Hemlo mine, and then going from north to south in Quebec. So the southern arm is connected to Beschefer. We have an encouraging VTEM target there with some encouraging gold grain geochem results down ice from that target. Cavion West is our largest project with no underlying royalty near the Osborne Bell deposit owned by Osisko. Bonanza again shares a large border with Osisko Mining in the Urban Barry Gold Camp. We've identified a 7-kilometer conductive trend there with complementary geochem targets on that project. Val-d'Or North is northeast of Val-d'Or, shares a border with Probe Metals. We had an encouraging maiden till and heavy metal concentrate program, which produced about 3 very encouraging targets, which we're going to follow up on next spring. So really our approach is, especially in challenging market times like we're in today, is to focus the majority of our budget on Beschefer while we continue to work our grassroots properties with smaller programs to define targets, while being open to developing those assets through option and joint ventures to create value for shareholders on that side of things, but focus our money where we believe we can drive the most material catalysts, and we're confident in that with Beschefer. So looking at a brief overview on Beschefer. So the Beschefer Project is about 30 kilometers south of Wallbridge's Fenelon gold deposit. So we have an option to earn 100% from Wallbridge over 4 years. We're well on our way to earning that option, and we appreciate the partnership that we do have with them. So really, as I mentioned, we sought out to find a near resource asset with expansion potential that had encouraging metal factor, historical metal factor intercepts that were open, and we were able to land on that with Beschefer. So historically, there was 4 metal factor intercepts over 100 grams per ton gold, 2 in the central shallow zone, 2 in the east zone. Martin will get into that in a lot more depth. And we were able to drill one of those 4, and that was 4.92 grams per ton over 28 meters. That was at the end of 2021 in the central shallow zone. And getting back to our mandate of conducting very cost-efficient exploration, Beschefer is a project that we have to use a remote camp. However, it does have very good infrastructure with the power line running through the main highway 4 kilometers north of the main drilling area. But we've been able to deliver both of our drill programs, which consisted of just over 9,000 meters total for under $200 a meter all in, even in this highly inflationary environment. So we're able to do a lot with our funds, and out of every dollar spent in the company during the year, 85% of that goes into the ground. So a little bit on the history before I turn it over to Martin. So the original discovery was made in 1995 by Billiton. They were the operators of the Selbaie Mine, which was a VMS polymetallic without gold mine, about 12 kilometers to the west of Beschefer. So when they were testing mag signatures in the area. Their focus was really additional base metals deposits. So when they made the discovery, it wasn't of a lot of significance to them at the time back then. Majority of the historical drilling was done in 2012 and 13 by Excellon. They had some encouraging results, but Beschefer was deemed non-key at the time in comparison to the larger projects that they had. The next operator, major operator, was Wallbridge. They did a 1,800 meter program in 2018 before Beschefer was overshadowed by their Fenelon gold deposit, which thankfully for us offered us the opportunity to partner with them on this project, and it answers the question of, if this is a serious prospect, why hasn't it seen more development in the past? The conditions lined up, and it's allowed us the opportunity to take that on. So maybe I'll turn it over to you, Martin, if you have anything else to add on the history before getting into the technical slides.
Thank you, John. No, it's correct. We can go ahead with the regional geology. So the technical part of the presentation will be split in 4 parts. We'll have a few words about the regional geology. We'll talk about the drill result and the geology associated with the Beschefer deposit, and we'll talk about the drilling approach on the project. Okay, here we use the last published geological map of the Abitibi Belt, and I don't know if it's the first time, but at least we are able to see something uniformized across the 2 provinces. So the project is located in the northern part of the belt, not very far from the Tour and the Grasse corridor to the north. So Selbaie area is centered on an intrusion and sand volcanic intrusion, and it is hosted in part of the not the oldest, but part of the old Greenstone Belt, with age between 2730 and 2744. Please, John, we can change. Here I show a map coming from a report written by Stéphane Faure from the Consorem, and they did an interesting study with all the geochemistry acquired during the producing year of the mine, and also SOCWEM was involved late in the life of the mine, and they explore different targets around the Selbaie. Around the Selbaie Mine. So it was, with this exploration, they acquired a lot of knowledge about the geochemistry, because there's no outcrop, and it's the only way to achieve an understanding about the mapping of a volcanic unit. So all the area is centered on the Brouillan intrusion. This is a sand volcanic intrusion. At first, it was thought as a uniform mass, but with different works, drilling, and they found that it's a complex of more mafic to intermediate part, and not necessarily injected, but interlayered with smaller volcanic basin. And the old area is really distinct from the original volcanic, because it's where we find the calco-alkaline or transitional signatures. So Beschefer is located east of Selbaie in one of this calco-alkaline domain. Please, John. We received recently Joe Cron from the owner of the surrounding property. It's Lionel Bonhomme from IEP, and they did last year, or early this year, they did a datation of a felsic intrusion located in the Beschefer area, giving an age a lot younger than the surrounding intrusion. It was one of the questions about the deposit, because as we'll see, there is some base metal associated. There's very small copper numbers, but also extensive alteration, which could be associated with volcanogenic heritage. So that the datation done on what is seen as a late intrusion in the Beschefer system was key to better orient exploration. Is it a late tectonic xenorogenic project, or remobilization of base metal stock with some gold added during the orogenic story? So this is a quite new information coming from Ayer, Hamilton, and Saturday. I have the map coming from the CGM system. Probably some of you knows the product. It is in the public domain, so it's just an overlapping of the original mag with the original geological mapping. It's only to show that what was thought initially as a uniform intrusion, it is cross-cut and composed of a variety of magnetic signature, and some of them can be associated with mafic bodies, with volcanic, and in the middle there is a massive felsic core. So southeast of this anomaly sits the Beschefer area. Here it's called the B14. It's the name of the initial discovery. So on this map we are able to see that the presence of gold is associated with something not necessarily circular, but a higher round magnetic anomaly. We'll see later in the presentation how it can be interpreted or decomposed. We have a close-up on the geological map of the project. It's quite simple. It's mostly mafic and intermediate volcanic. Here it's very, you can call that summary of this geology. There is a great variety of flows. Most of them are from the massive andesite. What we see in our core, it's massive andesite, and there is probably a felsic unit interlayered with the intermediate rock. Something a very important point of the geology is not present here. It is a granodiorite. There is an intrusion of unknown influence, because it's only known by drilling. So there is, inside that, there is a late tectonic granodiorite to syenite to granite, depending of the type of alteration and texture observed by the geologist. The name of the rock can change. At right, it's the actual drill map. So as John mentioned, the objective is really it's to develop a resource based on an existing drill coverage. So the objective is finding trends and trends of greater metal factors and trying to find good correlation inside this volume. The size of the target, actually, it's about 1 kilometer along strike, and possibly 400-500 meters on cross section. This is an overview of the first results we obtained last year. So there is interesting core with strong metal factors like old 2021-02 at 5 grams over 28 meters. There is in the middle a sweetener above 10 grams per ton. But some of the other results are more representative of this mineralized structure. It's common to obtain 10 meters true thickness and grade varying between 1 and 3 grams per ton. So the trick is really to extend the lenses, but also finding the right control to improve the grade and improve the metal factors. And also we started to model that, and it's split in different lenses. It's not a unique panel, and in each lens we see the same pattern. General thickness of 10-15 meters, and we hope some local enrichment above 10. And also there's we'll see on other views, but there's a potential to extend along strike this area. Please, John. Last year we keep on working with the same approach, and for sure with similar results. John, do you want to add something on that, on these chain of results?
Yeah, so it was I think the common critique that I got from the market going into the project was that these were too high grade lenses with no strike expansion potential. Since acquiring the project, one of the key holes was just jumping back. So hole 14 was about 150 meter step out to the northeast, where we hit a gram per ton over 20 meters. So we've started to expand on the size. We are getting closer to our goal of connecting both the central shallow and the east zone. So we've made a lot of headway in our first two. We're coming up on our second year anniversary in March of 23, and we are developing this project in a cost-efficient manner at the present time, while maintaining the cap structure that we have. But we do really see this project justifying year-round drilling, and it's our goal to develop this with smaller programs to a point that the market recognizes the value that we're creating here, and we're able to meet our objective of drilling this year-round. And hopefully we have some assistance from the market next year as gold and commodities turn around. Okay,
here it's the long section of the project, and it is a good illustration of the great variation and complexities of the internal distribution of grade and thickness. So I think we have the size is with us, and even from a surface perspective, it looks quite compact, but the overall deposit has a moderate dip in the range depending on the area. It's 50 to 60, 65 degrees. So it creates a large area on the long section view. So in the background there is the model lenses corresponding to consistent geology, and on top it's the leapfrog modeling of grade. So there's a partial overlapping of the two. It's because the lens is modeled with the geological indicators, so it represents more or less the actual expansion potential of this complex. So eastward, what we think is more interesting, it is this branch extending laterally with the last result close to 1 gram over 20 meters. John? I would like to present you some aspect on the geology, starting from a peripheral view on Beschefer with geological indicators, and going inward where we see more higher grade. So all this mineralization is associated with a ductile fault. We call that the mylonite because it's completely laminated, mafic to intermediate, volcanic with a strong carbonatization. The background quartz veining, you see, it doesn't belong to the gold system, so just concentrate on the laminated aspect of this rock. There is also a lot of secondary magnetite in the saturation, and the secondary magnetite. It's quite visible. It's associated with all stages of alteration at Beschefer. If we progress inside the mineralized lens, we see low-grade gold value of over considerable thickness in the range of 20, 60 ppb, local spikes above 1 gram per ton. And if we look closely on the alteration sequence where we find this grade above 1 gram, we see appearing a pervasive silicification with albite, and there is more secondary iron oxide. You see where the rock is brownish or reddish, correspond to the transformation of magnetite to hematite. And there is also a brecciation, a tectonic brecciation of these rocks. Is what we see in the middle of the left picture. This is a strip log of the distribution of lithologies and alteration. So at the left, in the lithologies, it's most of the time it's described as intermittent volcanic, but there is a few layers of more felsic material, tufaceous most of the time, and there is in the middle the malonite correspond of it most of the time on unknown protolith. So it is described as itself. The alteration shows some type of zoning. So there is a wide chloritic halo with a lot of barren pyrite, and in the middle, close to the mineralization, there is more complexities with silicification, some iron, a lot of iron carbonate, anchorite, and albite, and mixed with the chloritic halo, there is bands of biotite-rich alteration, which are indicated by the brown unit on the column. Here it's an example of the 1 gram continuous 1 gram ton threshold. So you are probably able to see that there is a continuous brecciation over a considerable thickness, and in the middle there is more albite and iron carbonate indicated by the yellowish color, and more iron oxide on both sides with some hematite seen in the core at the right, on the right image. This is the hole coming from the eastern extension of Beschefer. And so here's an example, not an example, but it is a description of lithologies. So in this area, the malonite seems to correspond to a contact with the felsic and the mafic unit. The felsic is the hanging wall, and there is more faulting, shearing, and the alteration is more varied with alternating bands of silicification, secondary feldspar. Sometimes it could be also secondary K feldspar, and silicification in the middle. And you see at the right the distribution of gold grade, which is quite consistent. Here is an example of a higher grade core. So we observe that there is a gradual complexity of structure going from purely laminated to brecciated, and where we see higher grade, the brecciation is reworked in a finer grain microfracturing or microbreccia with more secondary feldspar cemented, all that. So it's where the grade can jump from 1 gram tons type to 10 and over. So on the right side, yeah, on the right side it shows that it's more uniform, but there's still layers showing different type of alteration. And what I just want to highlight that this dark colored rock corresponds to a strongly magnetite, biotite rich rock, And actually, the exact timing of all that is not well constrained. We see that it's overprinting fluorite, but in the detail, there's no sequence of alteration. Here is a strip log of all that. There's some miss here, but it shows that here again the melanite is included in intermediate rock, and as the other column, it's more or less the same type with mineralization associated with iron carbonate and secondary feldspar. We think that it's really the rework structure that seems to trigger the great enrichment of the inside the lens. We're going back to a more original view on the project. So I mentioned at the beginning that the Beschefer is associated with something a lens shape or punctual magnetic anomaly. So it's what we see here. We see the model lenses of the Beschefer, and located at the transition between the more original background and this strong anomaly. With a little bit of treatment, we saw that this anomaly is deeply rooted. It's one of the few in the area. Normally, the pattern, like the small magnetic unit corresponding to chert in the area, or a little bit of iron formation disappear quite quickly if we do an inversion. But this type of signature is the only one deeply rooted. And for the moment, we can only speculate that the presence of secondary magnetite seems to be the source of this magnetic halo. But we saw some intrusion. There is minor lamprophire dikes. There is granodiorite. The one which was dated is located a little bit southward, but for the moment there's no unique source other than the magnetite that can explain the bulky aspect of this anomaly. But it's probably related to the hydrothermal story observed in Beschefer core. And the strategy we want to follow is quite simple. This structure has a very systematic, very uniform dip. The grade, the prediction of grade and thickness, it's really an issue to solve or better understand. So we generate a lot of targets inside this model lenses, and we try to figure out how the higher grade are linked inside these lenses. We know that there is probably cross-cutting structure controlling the higher grade parts. So there's a combination, probably a combination of two controls on the distribution of mineralization. So a more linear northeast original trend, and where it cross-cut by something more north-south, interpreted based on the tight drilling we have. We see in the core more brecciation, and an increasing of texture complexities and of grade. Here it's a view on cross section. So this zone is very shallow dip, and it's why we expect, or we can, by a minimum amount of metrage, we can achieve interesting goal. So the objective is finalize this drill pattern and transform that eventually in a resource. John, do you have something to add?
Yeah, no, we are planning a winter drill program, so that's our focus now. It'll be a bit of a smaller drill program given the current market conditions and our goal of conserving capital. But still, there's some key targets that we'll be testing, and trying to locate the next high grade shoot to help get recognition in the market. As I mentioned, our goal, and we do believe there being a lot of investment demand for this project once the market turns up with the need for deposits, especially in the Abitibi along strong infrastructure. So we're very excited about the project, but we're patient in our approach so we can balance producing results while managing the cap structure to deliver on our goal of having a platform that sees a re-rating, that we're able to drill this project year round and really show the pathway of developing a serious resource here. But appreciate all of your time learning about the story, and I'll turn it over to you, Attila, for any starting questions and go from there.
Yeah, well, thanks, John and Martin. Yeah, it's definitely a project that deserves a lot more drilling. I'm always fascinated by like that myelinite, how predictable it is. I remember when we were drilling a few holes, we hit it exactly where we wanted it, like within a meter. So it's a very nice, predictable structure. And so you mentioned that there's like the better grades are sort of related to more of a brecciation episode. So do you think is that like a later brittle overprint on the ductile myelinite, or what could be going on there?
It looks progressive. Like probably we see that the myelinite is gradually carbonatized and probably becomes more brittle, and at the same time there is an initiation of fracturing and brecciation going gradually. The time we see this input of iron carbonate and secondary feldspar and quartz too. Okay, so there's not really two phases. It looks like something progressive.
Yeah. So yeah, going through the questions here. So Eric Lemieux was just emphasizing that, it hasn't been a flagship project for previous issuers, and that's totally true. So Excellon, they were silver producers in Mexico. So gold, and especially Canada, wasn't really their main focus. And then, like we already said, for Wallbridge, I can personally attest to it that end of 2018, when we drilled a few holes at Beschefer and then Fenelon, we were just as excited about the projects. And then at Fenelon, we just ended up making our discovery hole of Area 51, and then just that became its own story. And so yeah, I think Beschefer never really got the attention that it deserves. So it's really good that we've got a good team now taking this on. And so Eric also is wondering about north-south regional diabase dikes, the relevance of those. Martin, not sure if you have, are there any north-south regional diabase dikes in the area?
Yeah, there is a few. I think it corresponds to earlier structure, because there's a lot of noise appearing around them. It's not like a straight signature, IMAX signature around these diabase dikes. There is more noise, a noisy pattern who can be related to earlier brecciation.
Yeah, not sure. Maybe Eric, you can go unmuted. Did you ask that question because of those cross-cutting north-south structures that Martin was talking about, upgrading the mineralization, or to explain the mag high, or?
In part, but also I've if I'm not mistaken, I'm quite wonderstruck sometimes when you see these projects, these gold projects and gold deposits, where without having a direct correlation, sometimes not too far off, you see these north-south later dikes that sometimes cross-cut the deposit. And I give the example of the Perron project of Amex Exploration, where on the high-grade zone, effectively there's this dike that cuts. But sometimes I sort of have a reflection where, effectively, like Martin said, maybe these structures represent old deep-seated structures where there's circulation of fluid, and without having a direct correlation, I'm amazed effectively when you see these world-class deposits in the world. Sometimes you always see not too far off these later structures, diabite stakes. So it's something that I was just wondering, because Martin, when his first slide, when he showed the CGM regional geology, if I'm not mistaken, both on the Selbaie and near Beschefer, there seem to be these I think it's Proterozoic, Paleoproterozoic dikes of the Metashawan. And I'm just wondering again here, this potential correlation. So this sort of excites me a little bit for Beschefer, where maybe there's something going on there deep seated. And it just raises again maybe my question, Martin and John, what has been the deepest hole that's been drilled on the project?
For the moment, it's not very deep. There is for 500 meters. Inside the property, it's 500 meters. But on the southern properties, there is historical information down to 700 meters, and there is the same alteration, and it's hard to say if it's exactly the same malonite, but the same alteration style was observed down to 700 meters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then again, related to the depth, Ed is asking about near surface open pit potential. I guess these cross sections are kind of showing that, so you do have some areas where it's coming really close to surface, right?
Yeah, one of the things that we're going to work with, because we do own our own mobile drill, one of the things that we're going to do is focus with that drill, likely next spring, or maybe we'll do it as part of the tail end of our program, is we're going to use that drill to focus with short holes to try to locate the interface, and we'll be able to do that exercise a lot more cost efficiently that way. And we can do some holes, leave the drill there, wait for assays, and then continue down the trend. So that's part of our strategy, is to try to highlight the near surface potential more. Nice.
And you didn't mention the part of the story, but I seem to remember that so there's that diorite that you said at the beginning, that there's some kind of a buried diorite, which might be part of the story. And I think there's some gold numbers in there as well, right? A little bit of copper. So I was wondering about your thoughts of, we're in VMS country, obviously. You've shown the map of the Selbaie calcaline complex and everything like that. Like, could that diorite be related to that? And could there be some kind of intrusion related or volcanic, VMS type system that is base metal rich, and maybe that's sort of a precursor to the...
Yeah, we started to hit this granodiorite. We had only one observation in one hole, but it seems that there's a early phase which is lake tectonic. It's slightly deformed, and it contained a lot of biotite and traces of gold and copper. And when you look at it, with all the fracturing, unoriented fracturing, it looks like a classical intrusion-related setting. But the date EIP did on the intrusion, we're not sure it came from this phase in particular, because there is later pinkish granitic intrusion that crosscut this more earlier granodiorite. So there is a detailed work to do, probably by pulling a lot of core boxes and trying to interpret all that. Yeah, it's one of the objective, the background objective on this project.
Yeah. Could you go maybe to that slide with the age dates? Because there was something that that we noticed there as well. So yeah, there's not many age dates yet in the whole area, and where we are also in the Beschefer Fenelon belt there. But so you have this age here of 2694 and 2692. And we actually have the Jeremy diorite, which is really important in the Fenelon story. That's 2697, so it's a little bit older, but kind of in that same ballpark. So there's not many age dates in there, and the GSC is working. Yeah, the GSC is working with Evan, who's a PhD student with us. Trying to generate more age dates and kind of putting together the stratigraphy. So maybe these age dates could also help them a little bit in putting it all together.
Mm-hmm. And there is also the lamp profile, which they are all altered, so probably it doesn't appear easily in the database, but there is really a swarm of lamp profile. Yeah,
but yeah, Eric is right. There's a north-south database that right across there. And it's funny, that actually reminds me of in Sudbury we used to notice the same thing. All the deposits in the Selbaie area, you tend to get these young olivine diabase dikes cutting through the deposits. So that was always kind of an interesting relationship there as well. That of course they're much younger than the mineralization, but they seem to exploit the same deep-seated structures, or long-lived structures. So could be a similar concept here. And then yeah, Lyle was just commenting there as well that apparently at Bachelor, there's a similar situation going on.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Any more questions in the chat? Lyle had a question about orientations. Maybe, Lyle, if you want, you can go unmuted as well if it's easier that way.
Yes, okay. Well, firstly, just for the comment about Luck Bachelor, there we're seeing that the oldest geometry just created during rifting, the margins of a lot of the domains were actually north-south, and then they were cut by those main dextral shear zones. And so you're in a similar sort of situation, it appears just on your maps without knowing the area, to that area near the Maréville, where the Bachelor deposit's located. And of course, there's the alkaline intrusion there that you also mentioned. But my comment just in the chat was more that, you've referred to the regional dextral shear zone that you showed, like on Stefan Foer's map. And then on that image where you were showing the north-south structures, you said that the regional trend was northeast-southwest. And so I'm just wondering there if the two are related, if that northeast southwest trend is the orientations of folds that were actually formed during that dextral shearing event, or just what exactly you meant by that being the regional trend being northeast southwest.
Yeah, I talk more about the original trend was really how the volcanic sequence is organized. I don't have a clear idea about the structural pattern, because it's like the Milonite has an unusual dip, and we know that it's not an opening structure. It's well constrained, and all the type of breccia we see, it looks like really a tectonic one with attrition and some pressure solution. So it's probably part of a wider shear system, and we're maybe just looking at one component on this larger deformation zone, but I don't have any clear hypothesis about where is located the main shear, or is it the main one, and there is opening or oblique structure elsewhere.
But the monolithic fabric, what's its orientation? Because you never really said what the orientation
Oh,
was.
sorry, it's yeah. I don't have to. I don't have the exact.
Oh, no, but just
honestly,
roughly.
I haven't like measure it from the with the software. You cut it in different orientation, and you look at, oh wow, this is. Yeah. I see more consistency in grade and thickness, but honestly, we don't have like we haven't made a zoom out to show, okay, this is like a north 70 with 40 degrees dip, and also it is designed as a unique structure, but I'm actually not sure if we are not looking at different branches tightly organized in an envelope, but there is maybe 2 or 3 different splays, and each one with their exact orientation. Even if at a broader scale, it's always interpreted as a unique structure, but there is in areas there is sharp or quick change of orientation that may indicate there is more than one panel.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. That's much clearer.
Good. Well, thanks. If there's no other questions, then yeah, thanks again for everybody's time, and John and Martin for the presentation, and see you everybody probably a month from now. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.